Hello, everybody. I'm going to try and keep this as entertaining as possible. Thank you all for coming. My talk is going to be about augmented reality art, and more specifically around location-based augmented reality art. So I'm going to start off with a little art history lesson. Does anybody recognize this piece or knows what it is? Yeah? Yeah? OK, a few people. Great. This is a piece by Marcel Duchamp from 1917. It was called The Fountain. And it is a modern art history lesson for a lot of us because it was a standard urinal that he bought, and he signed it R. Mutt, and he put it inside a gallery, and it caused a big uproar because nobody wanted to consider this as art. And he started this concept of something called ready-made art. And he was one of the founding members of a movement called Dada. What is Dada? Or you must be thinking, who is Dada? Well, Dada is a movement in art and literature that is founded on purposeful irrationality and the denial of traditional artistic standards. That's what the dictionary definition states. But what I'm going to try and do is find links between Dada and augmented reality and how it's relatable and how it relates to the world that we live in now. So Dada was born from chaos after World War I. It emerged in Zurich in Europe. During the turmoil of World War I, artists used their work to represent and express disgust with the violence and absurdity of the war. It used something called a collage technique, where they would use this element of randomness. They would cut up magazines, they would cut up newspaper clippings, put it in a pile, pick out whatever comes out, put it together, and create art pieces. Very similar to what we do with augmented reality in some ways. It was very anti-establishment. Dada was fiercely anti-establishment. Dadaism rejected traditional notions of art and questioned the values of society that resulted in the war. It paved the way for a lot of other movements like surrealism and pop art and even the punk rock movement. So Dada has significantly contributed to the culture that we live in and the culture that has created the technologies that we have today. This is Hugo Ball. He's one of the founding members as well. And he's wearing here a cubist outfit at Cabaret Voltaire in Zurich in 1916. This is essentially truly Dadaist. It is absurd, it is ridiculous, but it negates all concepts of what is normal and what is abnormal. Hugo Ball said that art for us is not an end in itself, but an opportunity for true perception and criticism of the times in which we live. I think that is more pertinent today than ever before. Hello, everybody. My name is Shahwali Shayan, or you could call me Shah. I am a creative technologist, an artist, an augmented reality creator, and I also teach at the Royal College of Art in London. My practice bears a profound imprint of Dada. I am deeply inspired by the art movement, and I think it has significantly shaped my artistic approach towards life and towards the work that I produce. I am intrigued by the juxtaposition of 3D scanned physical objects that might be mundane to other people but hold a lot of importance in my life, and handmade art that can be scanned and turned into physical art that can be scanned and turned into digital art, and exploring the perceptions of mundane everyday objects. I also lead workshops for Snapchat's philanthropy team in London, and like I said, I teach at the Royal College of Art. I'm also founder of a small creative studio called Shenanigans, where we create augmented reality filters and experiences for brands. So for some of my friends who are here who are AR creators themselves, you probably heard of me, or we would have crossed paths at some point. Our main focus in augmented reality is social AR, so platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. And I've been lucky enough to have worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, which would not have happened had I not gone into augmented reality. But after doing this for a while, I realized that I wanted to continue my research journey. I wanted to build my practice beyond the commercial practice, and I wanted to really push the boundaries of what augmented reality can be. As a young person from Pakistan, I was given very few options of what I should do in my career. It was either lawyer, doctor, or one of those careers, art wasn't an option for me when I was growing up. So at this point, what I did was, after I'd made a bit of money, I went to Google, as most people do, and I typed in or searched for the most prestigious art school in the world. And as luck would have it, it was in London. It was called the Royal College of Art. I took a leap of faith, and I applied, and luckily I got in. I got in with a scholarship, and this is where I started really pushing what I wanted to do with augmented reality. I went from being a commercial augmented reality creator to a researcher and a critical practitioner. So I started doing research a lot of the times, but not just any sort of research. I went into a specific form of research known as autoethnographic research. Autoethnography is a form of research where you take something that happened to you, examine it closely, and then use that experience to make sense of the world around you. It's like looking at a grain of sand to learn more about the beach and the entirety of the beach. Since autoethnography was about looking back at my life, I looked back at every piece of work that I had ever made since childhood. These were collage pieces that I made when I was 12 or 13 years old, not knowing what Dada was, not knowing what collages was. It was just something I wanted to do to express myself. I went to bookstores in Pakistan, and I would buy these used magazines for dirt cheap, and I would come back home, cut them up, put them on a giant canvas, and just express what I wanted to feel. So I didn't know that this was truly, truly Dadaist. And Dada sprouted as a movement after a war. And it really made me question, does Dada manifest after a war? And does it always, is it a war that could also be like an internal battle? Does it come after something that is so traumatic? And if so, what that looks like? Later on in my life, I moved away from collages, and I discovered augmented reality. This is one of the first experiences I ever made when I was learning about what augmented reality was. It was a very simple experience. But all it did was it applied this sort of light effect on your face. But no other medium gave me this opportunity to express myself like AR did. It was real time. I could see how people were interacting with it. People needed to be a part of the experience for the artwork to work. But to me, the more I thought about it, the more apparent it became that augmented reality is a sort of a digital collage. You're collaging digital imagery onto the real world. So is AR Dada? Does that mean augmented reality is a Dada medium? Because that is exactly what Dada is all about. And I think AR is a Dada medium. I concluded, or I would rather argue, that in many ways, modern-day augmented reality is a modern-day version of Dada art. Much like physical collages, we're collaging digital imagery. But it is a subversive medium. It means that you can create a lot with it, and you can question the world around you, and you can subvert the world around you, which got me thinking, why is AR Dada? Well, number one, it is a subversion of reality. We are constantly subverting reality by creating this boundary or blending the boundary between the real world and the virtual world. In many AR applications, we introduce this sort of whimsical, absurd playfulness, and that is quite Dadaist as well. By layering digital content over physical spaces, we are creating a form of real-time interactive collage, merging various digital and physical elements. AR experiences are inherently interactive, and you require the audience to be a part of it, which is, in Dada history, a big part of their art movement as well. While AR is a product of modern technology, I think it can be used to critique the same technology and its effects on perception, reality, similar to science fiction movies. So then I thought, can AR be a medium for fine art? Not just creative expression, but real fine art, where a medium we can publish it. And can you sell those experiences? What does it look like? Where will we publish them? How will I deploy it? How will people view it? And I went into this sort of existential artistic crisis almost. What would Marcel Duchamp do with AR? What would Dadaists do if they had augmented reality back then? And what sort of works would they make? Is AI ready-made art? Can Dadaist expression help me, and why is it important today? Where do I fit in all of this world? So I went back to Google, as most people do, and I went and I looked for the biggest contemporary art gallery in London. And lo and behold, it is called Tate Modern. It is one of the biggest institutions for modern and contemporary art. And to conduct my research, I went inside it, and there on that bridge, I sat, I took out my laptop, and I started researching. I just wanted to absorb it all in. And I thought, while I was doing this, I noticed that the security people in the building were looking at me differently. And I thought, oh, well, brown guy with a laptop, they're thinking, holy. And the sirens are going off. So I then tried like brush it all off. And I continued doing it. And I noticed that the aggression was getting more and more, and it was building up. And then I got up, put my phone up, and I was looking around, and these two security guards ran from across the room, and they came to me and they said, you're not allowed to record videos here. Mind you, at this point, there's hundreds of people around me. They all have their phones up. They're all recording. So I don't understand why I'm being singled out, but I was so discombobulated and so confused with what had happened that I just left. And I was just constantly thinking, why was I justifying their bad behavior? But it got me thinking even more, like, why was I singled out? Who owns public space? Who owns virtual space? And then, can we democratize space? Can I use AR to take over this space to tell my story? And not just in a way that is about squatting or vandalizing in an illegal manner, but in a more philosophical exploration sort of thing. To create an artistic installation, something that can help me express my protest in this gallery and this museum. To me, Dadaism is about not conforming to the status quo and actively questioning, critically questioning, the world around me and being critical of it. What is considered the normal way of doing things? It is a movement that encourages us to think outside the box, to be bold and fearless in the face of criticism, and to be open to experimentation and change. And that, everybody, was the start of my project called Ghosts of the Past. What is Ghosts of the Past? It is an AR ghost exhibition at Tate Modern. I wanted to create a self-portrait, an exploration, or rather celebration of my identity, the identity that was used to exclude me from a space that I really loved, that was very close to my heart, a place that was supposed to be inclusive for me. And fragmentation was a very important part of that, where I say fragmented identity. Fragmentation is a very important part of it because, like a collage, I feel like my identity is made up of multiple different fragments, and what that looks like is quite important. So the goal here was to challenge and question the structures of power in society and the status quo, as well as the traditional notions of art and identity. What is a ghost exhibition? A ghost exhibition is an art exhibition where the physical art piece isn't present in the exhibition space, but rather is created and displayed using augmented reality. This was the art piece, and scale is a very important part of it. So scanning everyday objects and then scaling them up to the point where it changes the perception of the user. Everything you see is a real-world object or a physical object that has been scanned and then brought into augmented reality. How did I make it? I made it in Lens Studio using Snapchat's technology. A big shout out to Arthur Buffard, who helped with, well, his tutorials, really. This is what it looked like in a 3D rendered version. The first thing I did was scan everything. As you can see, there's two versions of me. There's a 3D scan of myself, which I did using Polycam. The two 3D versions of me are looking back at each other. So one represents the past, one represents the present, and everything in between is the journey. There's teardrops, crystal teardrops, that signify how difficult the journey was of self-discovery. The moss that you see is actually something else, a visual dialogue. It's a part of my research that I use quite significantly, but that is a whole other talk. I use this Urdu saying called "Sabze ko jab kahin jagah na mili, ban gaya roye aap par kai," which is my mother tongue, Urdu. And it basically translates to, when there was no space for greenery on earth, it became moss on the surface of water. And it is a statement of resilience and sort of nature reclaiming and taking over man-made structures. I also 3D scanned this moss that you see, which I handmade with embroidery. So I made the embroidery first, then 3D scanned it, and then brought it into AR. It represents my dialogue between myself, society, and the structures that exist within, and pays homage to my mother, who taught me how to embroider. This is a coal liner bottle that belonged to my grandmother, and it holds a lot of significance in Pakistani culture, but is also something where I invite people to look through the world through my eyes. So that's why it's there. The jasmine flowers that you see is Pakistan's national flowers, but the 5 petals represent my nuclear family, so I pay homage to them. I made these flowers by hand and then 3D scanned them and then brought them into the AR experience. I then have my father's shoes that he wore to his wedding, but then I was given them later on in life. They're called khussas. And I use them because I'm inviting the user to step into my shoes and walk through my shoes and go through my journey. These are my mother's earrings that I've added to the experience, and I made them these large chandelier-type pieces. I've always wanted to incorporate these sort of visual elements that you see, the swirls. They represent dance almost. But how is this democratizing space? I feel like no other medium gives me the chance to create these sort of experiences where we can stack realities. No matter what link you're using, you can see a different art piece over there. And I wanted to explore this concept of taking this exhibition further, so I made it a touring exhibition, and I took it to Paris, adapted it there, then took it to Berlin, did that. Then it took another shape in the form of an immersive experience in London at a venue called Frameless, where I have a 4-month residency. And now in true Dadaist spirit, this is most of what my practice is all about, but I would also, now I'm exploring this concept of creating more augmented reality installations. And the next series is going to be called Artificial Stupidity, which is the exact opposite of artificial intelligence. Thank you very much. Sorry, I don't think I've left enough time for questions because we're on the dot.
We have a couple minutes. If anyone has a question, we have 2 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? I must say, I love how you used Marcel Duchamp as your intro,
Yeah.
and I thought that was absolutely perfect.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Has anyone sort of guerrilla hosted this digital VR experience in the physical space of a gallery?
Oh, I'm trying to think of references. Some people have tried to do that, but obviously that is extremely illegal.
Like, if you tell me, no, you're not going to host my art, can I VR distribute my art in your gallery anyway and just invite people?
In this specific one?
Yeah.
I mean, I use a 3D scan of the space. And the thing I want to do is I'm going to make it open source. So if anybody wants to use that and put their version of an installation inside Tate Modern, they can do that. So if you want to do it, you can use, I can share the code afterwards with you, and you can use it to put your work there. And if I give my link to somebody, they can see my work, but then if you give your link to somebody else, they can see your work in Tate Modern. Cool. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Shahwali. That was incredible. Thank you.